Deafrowe with Deafrowe TV, and I'm back again with another review. And this time we're going to be talking about part 4 of one of my favorite BBC miniseries, The Day of the Triffids, a 6-part miniseries that I will be reviewing every part of on this little short 6-part series. Now, before I get started on part 4, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Hit that notification bell so you know when part 5 and 6 comes out. And let's get started on part 4 review. As you can see here, right at the beginning of this part 4, you remember from the end of part 3 that he was kind of chained up to a bed and tied up, pretty much. Let's go back here. Yeah, he's tied up here. And we just assume that Coker is involved with this because he's angry at the sighted people for not taking care of these blind folks that are needing help. And we end up being correct in a manner of speaking. We first meet, let's see, yeah, we first meet Alf here, played by John Hollis, and he is explaining to him why he's there and why he's cuffed up and basically chained to the bed by the ankle, and then his hands are tied together. So they pretty much have kidnapped him, and they're going to make him essentially their eyes. And then what's his face? He hands him some tea and cigarettes, trying to make him comfortable, whatever, you know. And Alf is kind of a nice guy to him, really. He's not, he's kind of laid back about how he is explaining things and everything. And then Coker comes in. Coker is explaining to him, "You're going to do what I tell you to do, and you're going to like it. You're not going to let these people die. Why? Basically puts on a big ass guilt trip on Bill to pretty much make him cooperate. And of course, Ted, which is right behind Coker right here, is going to be the other person that Bill's going to be handcuffed to, and he's played by John Benfield. And Coker explains, is like, all right, look, I got this all mapped out. All the people that I kidnapped, including Joe, because he says they kidnapped Joe as well, from that university. They staged a fire when it really wasn't a fire. They're just getting everybody to scramble so they can kidnap them. Anyway, so he's like, well, what I got here is we're going to set up a perimeter in different areas of the city. You're all going to stay in like a hotel or an apartment complex of some sort, so you're all together. And then you be these people's eyes and go get food for them, and you're going to stay handcuffed to them so you can't run away. So basically, I'm imposing my will upon you to make you do this. Damn, Coker being the biggest asshole there is in this whole ordeal. And he pretty much lays it out for Bill and doesn't really give Bill a choice in the matter whatsoever. And basically just tells Bill, you will be chained up every night and you will be handcuffed to these blind people when you go out. So you will not get away. And then even if you do want to get away, are you really going to let these people die? Basically guilting them on that. And then Coker leaves. And then they get outside to the van and they're basically going to go, to this hotel where they're going to set up their area. And of course, like as you can see here, he's handcuffed to Alf and Ted, and basically not going to go anywhere. So they go down the road and they get into this hotel, right? And the hotel manager, played by John Rumney, and the manageress, played by Gene Perkins, which is the woman right here, they're both telling him, like, we already have a few people here. We can't just, kick them out or whatever. And Bill's basically trying to explain to her, is like, look, we have all these people. They're going to come in here no matter what you do. The best case scenario is you work with us, and since I'm a sighted person and I'm handcuffed to these guys, we will share the food that we find with you and whoever's else that's left in this hotel. and she basically has her and the manager right here have to agree, you know, to the terms. At first, they're basically telling us, you can't have our food. There's not enough food left for us. And that's when Bill steps in and say, look, I'm a sighted person. I can help you get more food. That's not the problem. We just need to take over your hotel. And so basically, Ted's getting all bent out of shape about it, and he tells Ted to back off. And he's like, look. And that's when Bill says it's not a bad deal. So as you can see, like this is one of their, food runs right here. But as you can tell, there's an issue with the whole food run thing. He's basically taking all these blind folks around with him, and he's handcuffed to two of them, and then he has like five following by voice. But the problem still persists. They're still blind, and they're not used to being blind, and stuff like this happens right here, where they just fall down, bust a lip open, get cuts, and all this kind of stuff. And Bill knows that this is not going to last very long, but he's just trying to do what he can because he feels obligated to a certain extent to try, at least, even though this wasn't what he was wanting to do to begin with. But if you think about it, this kind of stuff is going to happen all the time with people who are not used to being blind and getting around in a certain way. They're going to fall down, they're going to get cuts, they're going to get bruises, they're going to break things, break bones, and all this other stuff. They're going to put their hands in stuff they probably can't, they don't know what it is. And it's just a setup for disease and failure of all sorts, as you can see here. And you're walking around with open sores, open wounds, and basically because you can't, patch yourself up because you can't see what you're doing. But Bill's trying to do everything he can for him, and so yeah, you can see he at this moment he's kind of like giving in to the whole leadership thing at this point. He basically just wants to get the food and get it out of there and get back to the place and do what he has to do. And that night, he kind of stays up that night. He's like writing a letter to Joe because he knows that Joe was also kidnapped and she's like leading a different group of blind people. Alf did tell him like, look, she's safe, and I told her that you're safe too, so y'all know you're both okay. And so he knows that she's somewhere in the town, like him, trying to lead a group of blind people. Let's see. The next day, though, presents a new challenge. And the challenge is that a couple of the people had come down with some type of sickness. And Bill, not being, a doctor of any sort, he doesn't know what the sickness is. But he's basically telling them, look, we can go to the pharmacist, or what they call the chemist in this show, and get some drugs at least. Maybe some will work, maybe some won't. Maybe it'll help him, maybe it won't. But at least he's sighted and he can go get the stuff. But in the meantime, if they're sick, they need to go to the house. There's basically like a house next door, and he tells them, okay, we got to put them in this house if they're sick. That way it doesn't spread through the hotel and get everybody else sick right away. Slow the spread as much as they can, at least. And since they're blind, they don't know who's sick and who's not sick, and who's lying about being sick and who's not. So they kind of have to depend on Bill to determine who's sick and not sick, and who goes next door and everything. So yeah, so they're coming back from the chemist's area, and they run into these hooligans, or I guess thugs you could call them, and they don't like these blind folks being led by this dude into their area. And so that one dude with the red hair with the white stripe takes it upon himself to grab a gun and start shooting at them. Like fish in a barrel, they're all blind, and Bill, being handcuffed to two of them, is a sitting duck as well. He sees it happening, but he can't do nothing about it because he's trying to get these blind folks to go in one direction, and they're not doing anything. Well, one of the first things this guy does is shoot Alf. He shoots Alf, who is handcuffed to Bill on the right side, And so Bill is hampered and finally gets Ted to give up the key. Yeah, gets the cuff off him and Alf, because Alf is dead, been shot. And as you see behind them right here, the other blind guys are trying to get away. And Bill's telling them, like, follow the fence, take a left, just follow the fence, trying to help them get away. At this point, Ted, which is the other guy he's handcuffed to, is trying to give him a hard time about not being. He's like, look, if I can't uncuff myself from you and him at this point, I'm no good to you, and they're going to kill us all. And Ted gives him a bunch of crap about it, and then finally he gets pissed off at Ted enough that he just whacks him in the back of the head and takes him out. Because Ted's like, get stuffed, whatever. So he knocks Ted out and then uncuffs himself from Ted as well. And I hear the dude's coming up on him. He's basically just walking up to him. He finds one of the other blind guys that got left behind. He got trampled on, so he's kind of injured. Finds him laying there and just shoots him in cold blood while he's laying down there. And they make it back to the hotel, and Bill's like telling the hotel manager, like, look, you're gonna have to, when we leave here, hopefully those guys didn't follow us here. And he basically tells them, he's like, we're going to take another party out. I'm going to take another group of guys out in the morning to see if we can't find some more, search a different area and find more food, because they're running out of areas to search in the area that they were designated to. So they're having to look for food somewhere else, and they have to go a little bit further out, maybe a little bit into the rural areas, and that's what's waiting for them. So that's what happens is they go into this little store on the outskirts of town. As you can see here, he's led them into the store. And when they get there, all hell breaks loose. And yeah, you see one of the guys comes crashing down the stairs, and he's been hit in the face by one of these Triffids waiting outside for him. Of course, he's blind, so he couldn't tell that there was a Triffid there. Well, he could probably hear the sound of the Triffid, but nothing else. And so now there's Triffids right outside this little store, and they're stuck. So now Bill's got to try to lead like 4 or 5 blind guys to a different route out of the store and get into a different vehicle, since they can't get into the van they came in because it's surrounded by Triffids. And you can kind of see here a little bit. Let's see if I can get a good shot of him right here. So yeah, he's got like three. I think it was like five guys here, and he basically finds like a limo inside the garage, and he puts them all in the limo to try to get them out of there before the Triffids gain up on them. So yeah, the Triffids are like waiting on them. Just waiting. So he's quietly trying to, yeah. So all these Triffids are waiting for him right outside the door with his car sitting in the garage. So he gets inside the limo and slowly pulls it out here. As he's pulling it out, the damn things are still striking the limo. As you can see here, trying to strike the limo. It's like boom, and then it hits the limo window right here with one of the stingers. And the suckers are mean because it knows the blind guys are in that limo. But when they get back to the hotel with the stuff they were able to get out of there, or what much stuff they could get, since the Triffids were blocking the way, he finds that the manageress, played by Gene Perkins, is now sick as well. As you can see, she's sweating bullets here. And that night, he's trying to go to sleep or whatever, and one of the younger women that is blind comes in there and is like, the guys are thinking that you're going to leave, and they thought if I came in here to be with you, that you won't leave. Maybe you're just lonely and you need a woman's touch or whatever. And he's like, just go away. I'm not going anywhere. Just leave me alone. Basically, he's fed up with being treated like he's, this oddball, even though he's not the oddball. He just happens to be able to see and they can't. And so they're trying to woo him by using the woman in the group to get him to stay. And he already made up his mind that he was going to stay until he was no longer needed, because he felt obligated at this point. He's gotten them this far, but now the Triffids are getting closer and closer. And so yeah, he basically tells her to go away. But then he wakes up the next morning and everybody is gone, except for the girl he was talking to the night before. And come to find out, she is now sick as well. And she's like, I don't know what to do. I'm not brave enough to put up with this or whatever. I'm not, if you could just do one last favor for me before you leave, because everybody else has already left. She's like, I know you're going to leave, and I couldn't leave myself because I'm too sick. Just leave me something so I can drink it and put myself to sleep, basically. And that's he kind of obligates, gives her something for that. And he feels bad about doing what he's having to do, but it's like him and Joe discussed from the very beginning. They're outnumbered by, there's only so much help they can give to the blind people around them. They're outnumbered so heavily. Uh, when it comes to, and then when you think about it, the hygiene and all this other stuff that's playing against them as well. I mean, everything is out. Electricity's out, power's out, phone's out. The water's probably not working like it's supposed to. Um, yeah, and then on top of that, they're falling over, getting bruises, cuts, scrapes, open wounds everywhere. And then their hygiene's not all that great. There're going to be all kinds of diseases that they end up getting by not taking care of them, not being able to take care of themselves. And you can't just put one-sided guy with 20 people and expect him to be the one that can take care of everything. And Bill knew from the get-go that it wasn't going to work, but he just went along with it because he became friends with some of these folks. And so now he's like, you know what, I gotta get going. I can't stay here much longer. I'm seeing too much death. We got, and these blind people, are dying slow death. They're either dying a slow death from disease or hunger, or the Triffids are getting them, or the thugs are shooting them in broad daylight and just leaving them on the streets. So yeah, he basically gets a little Range Rover and just heads on out. And he leaves the water for her to drink that's got something in it for her to finally put herself to sleep. And that's kind of what happens. So yeah, flies buzzing around her and she's gone now. So he decides to go stock up on some shotgun shells, and obviously the stuff that's going to be able to take down a Triffid, because he knows they're out there for sure now. And he finds this blind woman sitting in the area that Joe was supposed to be the sighted person for, and sees her trying to open up a can of coffee, thinking it's food. And yeah, it's not working out. So he trades her some beans for the coffee for information about where Joe might be. And she tells Bill, is like, well, maybe she's in this big hotel that we were staying at. That's where we were stationed or whatever, and that's where. And she kind of gives him a little bit of a description of where it is, and then that's where he ends up going. There's the big old hotel with like an escalator, big carpets and stuff like that, and and yeah, so that's where yeah, there's an escalator, a big old. I mean, it's a big old hotel, and he finds one last survivor there who's fixing to basically pass out from exhaustion and hunger, and gives him a glass of water in order for him to talk. And he says, if you're looking for that girl, either she's either she's here dead or she has moved on. Because if she's still here, she's probably dead. And then he kind of passes out. So then Bill decides to retrace his steps. He goes back to the university, where they were kidnapped from, and see if he can find any clues as to where they went. But when he gets there, he starts to hear doorsteps coming up to the double doors in the little auditorium where they were having their meetings from before. And he's calling out to Joe, but he doesn't hear anybody calling back. And then the footsteps are just approaching the door closer and closer. And then that's the end of the part 4. Now, it gets very interesting for part 5 and 6, because I think part 5 you see a little bit what happens after this, and then part 6 it skips like 2 years later or months later. I'm not quite sure. But as you can see here, in the weeks that he was trying to help, or was forced to help, the blind people by Coker, it just did not work out. It couldn't work out. Like I said, you're outnumbered by at least 100-1, if maybe more than that, versus blind people versus sighted people. So as you can see, it doesn't work, and Coker was imposing his will on other folks and making them do things that would probably gotten the sighted people killed just as much as the blind people. So I don't know. Take what you will from it, but that's my review of part 4 of The Day of the Triffids. Stay tuned for part 5. Deafrowe out.